I had worked with a secretary of DRPG when I was a young professional, and I remember she once told me that she has advised her kids to not appear for civil services.
The ecosystem has changed. It's not the same as it was 25 years ago. Whether to join the service or not is a very tough question.
We see certain civil servants on YouTube and social media taking the camera along with them while they're conducting raids.
Sometimes people get carried away and they start, going onto this mode of self-promotion. As you get a sense of how the person who are your constituents or what the difficulties of their life is, you can never make a meaningful difference at all.
What would be your views in terms of what are certain things that were tested in the examination at a skill level that helped you to become a successful senior IAS officer?
Welcome to yet another episode of the CEO Diary on Shatakshi Show. On this Shatakshi Show, I'm interacting with Mr. Ashish Kundra, who's the Principal Secretary with the Delhi government. This is part of a Q&A that we did with Mr. Kundra during a GGI live and interactive masterclass, and we have taken a snippet out of it to actually share a lot of learnings and a lot of really intriguing answers that Mr. Kundra had to give. In this CEO Diary, you are going to be learning from a senior IAS officer on why he decided to pick civil services, how does he compare to the examination of civil services to that of IIT, does he think that the examination tests for the real skills that a senior IAS officer would require, and many other interesting ethical decisions and ethical conundrums that he had to take in this journey. If you actually are looking for a plan B outside of civil services as well, then of course you can feel free to check out Global Governance Initiative Impact Fellowship as well, where you get such live and interactive masterclasses. You get one-on-one mentorship from our mentors from McKinsey, BCG and Bain. And of course, you actually do a live consulting project, so you get to ample your profile, and most importantly, you get the employment support as well. And if you like this episode of the Shatakshi Show on the CEO Diary, feel free to like and of course hit on the subscribe button so that we get motivated to bring many more such interesting shows for all of you. I hope you enjoy this one.
Welcome, Mr. Kundra. It's an immense honor for me to introduce you. Everyone, please meet Mr. Ashish Kundra. He is a senior IAS officer. He is serving as the principal secretary in the government of Delhi in the transport division. And of course, is also an esteemed author and has his recent publication around a Resurgent North-East Narratives of the Change. Internally, we have collected certain set of questions around ethics and a career in civil services. So I will pose those questions that our team collected for you. So if I understand things correctly, anonymity in civil services is usually considered to be a precursor to apoliticalness. At the same time, we see certain civil servants on YouTube and social media taking the camera along with them while they're conducting raids. So what are your thoughts on it? How do you think is anonymity then linked with apoliticalness, especially in contemporary day and age?
See, apoliticalness is a different basket. And I would say that apoliticalness refers to political affiliation with a certain ideology or a political party. So, there was a concept during Indira Gandhi's time, which was called committed bureaucracy, which means the bureaucracy is committed to the ideology of the ruling power. And it was felt at that time that for effective governance, you need a committed bureaucracy. But this runs contrary to what has been taught to us, what we have been trained in, and what is written in the Constitution. So you are not supposed to, so while you may have your own personal political views, everyone has, like all citizens do. And obviously, we would also vote for X or Y party. But that doesn't mean that it should color your judgment in exercise of your functions as a civil servant. That is one. Now, but the second part of the question which you've asked about anonymity is an interesting one because, again, in the classical sense of the civil service, you are supposed to be behind the scenes and a bit of an anonymous person and not come forward in front of the camera, etc. But frankly, times have changed, and there are two things which have happened. One, policy making itself, it has to be democratized. So earlier, policy making was, let us say, the preserve of the civil service, but policy making also has become extremely complex. So to that extent, while formulating policies, you have to engage with stakeholders. And stakeholders are of all kinds. So they could be academics, they could be civil society, citizens at large, and which means that you come out and engage with them on policy. It's like crowdsourcing ideas for policy. At the same time, we live in the digital age, and we are living in times where the power of social media cannot be ignored. So for good or bad, so there are both sides to it. So in my own department, for instance, there are people who would tag me on Twitter and ask me something, or say there's XYZ problem, and I have to then respond to that. So I can't just stay quiet and say, no, I'm going to be anonymous and I'm not going to do anything about it. Times have changed. So we have to accept it, and we have to be in step with the times. And at the same time, if there's something new which is happening, people expect that you are going to tell them about it. And for instance, in the field of electric mobility, we have rolled out a policy, but at times people don't know about it, and they don't know what are the incentives which the government has given, or what are the benefits of it, and why I should buy an electric vehicle. So I have to engage with people. So supposing I'm doing a podcast on electric mobility, and somebody's asking me a question, I'm trying to reach out to my consumers, right? So who are my consumers? It is people who are digesting policy. And to that extent, that is a very healthy engagement. At the same time, there is, let us say, it's a very thin line. And sometimes people get carried away and they start, going on to this mode of self-promotion. So some people I've noticed on social media, they are, posting a picture. Okay, I've joined office as district magistrate. How cool is that? Again, there's no value judgment to it. So, I mean, some people, to each his own, frankly. And I think that some people, if you enjoy it, everybody, as a private citizen, I have a right also to be on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever else. But then, you have to balance out on what is it and how is it that you are posting. So you could very well say, this is a private account. These are private thoughts I'm sharing with the world, or this is my official account and my official thoughts. You have to make a distinction, right?
Very interesting views, and needless to say, extremely balanced as well. On the lines of ethics, I would want to extend the conversation and perhaps get your views on empathy and compassion also. And would love to get your views on your work in the Northeast with respect to marginalized and weaker society. So, how has your experience in the IAS shaped your views on empathy and compassion towards marginalized and weaker section of the society?
See, empathy lies at the core of civil service. If you don't have empathy, you can never be a good civil servant. And when I went, I'll share an experience. I had 20 years ago, went to Mizoram. It was much less developed, much more remote. And being from Chandigarh, frankly, I had never traveled to that part of the country. I knew nothing about it, and it was a cultural shock for me. And I was district magistrate in the remotest district of Mizoram, which was at the intersection of Myanmar on one side and Bangladesh on the other. So you can imagine the extent of remoteness. And, I traveled to the most interior parts on the border. And, poverty had a different dimension there. So I remember still that there's a beautiful lake in one of the remote corners. I went there, and the 60-kilometer ride took me 7 hours. So you can imagine how bad the roads were at that time. And it was slushy, and my 4x4 gypsy was, it was shaking, and almost, I was always worried all the time that it would fall off the cliff. But fortunately, I made it there. And I saw a bunch of young children, on the playground there playing, etc. And in fact, in my book also, I've written this, that it struck me that life is an accident of birth. What if I was born in this village? I was privileged to be born to parents who were in Chandigarh, who gave me quality education, and I made it to the civil service. But what if I had my own mind, which I have, and yet I was born to parents of this village? Chances are I wouldn't even have made it to my 20s. What if I fell sick? There's no hospital nearby. What if if I was a farmer and I wanted to take my produce to the nearest market? It would take me ages, and by the time the produce would perish. So, the as you get a sense of how the persons who are living or who are your constituents in that area, how their life is, or what the difficulties of their life is, you can never make a meaningful difference at all. So empathy, I think, is the heart of governance, and without that, it is meaningless.
Very beautiful. I can imagine the level of humility that can come when you are facing life and death through that entire journey. Because we're talking about empathy on that same lines, I also see nurturing and mentoring few of the traits of a leader. Today, I'm leading a small organization, and mentoring is something that I think is something I have to do. Needless to say that I'm operating on a very small scale. You're an extremely senior IAS officer. You are operating at a massive scale with respect to your employees and other officers. So, how do you train or mentor your junior officers to ensure it just that you are not ethical, but the larger team uphold the highest standards of ethics and integrity?
The thing is that, first of all, in civil service or in any organization for that matter, anybody who upholds ethical standards is well known. So the grapevines are very strong on who is ethical and who is not. That's one. And for me, I always treat the younger officers as part of a family. They're a bunch of friends, so we hang out together and we have chats, conversations over a drink or over a meal, and we bond. They share, unburden their problems or their, let us say, dilemmas of life or other this, and then we try to exchange notes and see what is the best way to kind of go ahead, and it's a very for me also it gives me strength and hope and optimism that when I see in young minds the energy and the zeal to do or make a meaningful contribution to society, I feel somewhere very satisfied that yes, the spirit still lives on.
On the lines of future generation, on the lines of future of IS, I had worked with the secretary of DRPG when I was a young professional. And I remember she once told me that she has advised her kids to not appear for civil services. I would be curious to know about your view on what is the future of IS, especially because we are also talking about the role in upholding ethics and moral values in governance. And if possible, if you want to comment on, do you advise your kids to join the services?
Well, that's that's a bit of a tricky question, but yes, see, times have changed, and my own father was also an IAS officer, and I often tell whosoever I meet that I was conned into writing the exam by my father. So I did my BTech in electronics and from IIT Banaras, and then after that, everybody was kind of going abroad, and they were writing the GRE exams or whatever else. So in walks my dad, and suddenly he tries to tell me, does a hard sell as if IAS is the best thing which has happened to the world. And I am strongly and vehemently opposed to whatever he is saying. So he figures out that this guy is out of my control now. And so what he does is he said, okay, don't listen to me, meet a wide cross-section of people and take their views. Now, this control group he had fixed. So there was an air vice marshal, there was an engineer turned IAS officer, then there was the chairman of Swaraj Tractors. So the air vice marshal, very, how shall I say, he asked me, why do you want to go abroad? And, I said, well, a great opportunity, etc. You are able to make a lot of money. So he, first of all, just demolished my argument. Says, the ambition to make money is a very ghatiya aim of life. So, I don't know what to say then. Acha, chalo, that's, well, you have a point, I guess, philosophically speaking. But so, I mean, I kind of was pushed into writing the exam and made a choice. I read a book long time back by Richard Bach called One, and I don't know how you have read it, but that's about choices. Each moment. So if there's a graph which we make of a life from our conscious time we are conscious in our life till death, each moment we are making choices, and by making certain choices, if you plot the graph, there's a trajectory of life. But then in one lifetime, you are living a million alternate lifetimes. Those are alternate universes, which you are excluding by certain choices. And the career path which you take is a very important choice, because after all, your living time or the waking time is spent in the office. So you have to love what you do. So if you don't love this kind of a job, you have to come into the service with the eyes wide open. That, okay, the money is not good, but the diversity of experience is fabulous. But yes, the ecosystem has changed. It's not the same as it was 25 years ago. And where it is headed, we don't know. The other thing is, let's remember that the civil service is in for a change. It is no two ways about it, because it was modeled on the imperial civil service. The imperial civil service, the key functions were maintaining order and revenue maximization, and then it expanded into development, this and that. But I think with changing times, there is a demand for specialization. So many new areas have come. Technology is permeating every sphere of policy. So I think that very soon, maybe in the next 10, 15 years, the shape of the civil service itself will change. Whether to join the service or not is a very tough question. So whosoever is making that choice has to be very sure it's not an easy path. And it's not an easy choice. So, I mean, I'll just illustrate this. I went to US a couple of years ago, and at that time I was on Facebook also. So I just messaged on Facebook that I'm coming. All my friends, they descended, they live in the Bay Area, so 35 of them, they kind of descended there, and we met somebody's house who was living in Cupertino. So one girl, she's working with Apple. The other guy is working with Cisco. A third guy is working with Facebook. So I was wondering, $2 million houses. So I'm thinking to myself, have I made the right choice? Those guys are looking at me with some kind of awe, as if I have made it big in life. And I'm looking at them and I'm saying that. So grass is greener on the other side always. Come what may. But I think as long as whatever you do excites you, gives you a kick in life, do it.
Very beautiful anecdotes, and completely concur. It's a personal decision. Because we are talking about this life or this career being tough, on the same lines, I would want to understand a balance between growth of relationships over growth of careers. I believe our generation, including me, is just so obsessed with growth of careers that many a times we take relationships for a tank. So how many times have you missed family dinners, let's say, to work for our nation or to serve our nation, if any?
Again, these are, as an individual, I, for example, try not to take work home. For me, I try to draw a boundary that, okay, I'm sitting in office till X time, then I'm done. I don't even think about work when I go home. I typically would like to enjoy my weekend also. So, I hate to be disturbed on anything which is to do with work. I keep telling myself there's life beyond files. Otherwise, we keep on looking at the files in the office, and we think we are doing a great job, and the earth will come collapsing if we are not there. But never happens like that. And you have to make time for friendships, and you have to make time for family. Ultimately, these things. But even at work, I think it's also about relationships. No, it's about your strength of people is what drives you. So if you are able to engage with people, with your peers, your seniors, your juniors, and make friends there, it becomes it's very seamlessly interchangeable then.
Beautifully said. I completely concur. The relationships at work are equally, if not more important. I have one more curiosity at the intersection of ethics, career in government services, and UPSC as well. I was talking to a friend, he's an ex IPS officer, he has left the services, and he had certain contrarian views on the questions or the skills that are asked in the UPSC examination and the skills that are actually needed to become a successful civil servant. I can totally understand it must have been 25 or more odd years that you would have attempted this examination. But roughly, what would be your views in terms of what are certain things that were tested in the examination at a skill level that helped you to become a successful senior IAS officer? And what were certain things, if any, which were perhaps missing?
See, let me put it this way. If somebody is making a choice to become a management professional in the private sector, in GRE or GMAT, what are the skills that they look for? It is English and maths, right? Is the problem solving and analytical skills which are given value above everything else. In UPSC, of course, again, pattern is slightly changed. At that time, you were supposed to take 2 subjects and then 1 general studies, and there used to be 1 essay paper. So there were 2 plus 2, 4 plus 1 general studies plus 1 essay. It was a huge package. So, I had done electronics engineering, and electronics engineering was not part of the list of subjects which you could take. So I took physics, which was one, and then I took sociology, which was another. So I had to read MA level sociology books for this on my own, and somehow then there's an interview. So I think net the selection process is not bad. It's rigorous. What are the skills after all? So you have to have an ability to work hard, and it is only hard work which can make you succeed in the IAS. On the contrary, for example, if I have to compare it the JEE exam, which is the IIT exam, there it's not so much hard work as your brilliance and understanding of your concepts. The foundational concepts of mathematics and physics are what are tested when you're writing a JEE exam. So it's not that if I keep slogging and I'll suddenly crack the exam and top it. That's not going to happen. But in the IAS, it is perseverance, your ability also to absorb multiple things, and you're expected to have balanced views. You can't be veering on extremes. So I think that those attributes are fairly well calibrated in the UPSC exam. So I have no complaints there.
Can we all give a warm round of applause for Mr. Kundra for being so patient with all of our questions and the teachings? Mr. Kundra, over to you. Would absolutely love if you would want to have any parting remarks for all of our young professionals who are looking to build a career in policy, and of course, few of them in business.
No, thank you for having me over, and it's always exciting and really invigorating to engage with young minds. And I wish each one of you all the best. All I can say is that you are at an inflection point in your careers. And, as I said earlier, the choices you make will determine who you are. And therefore, make wise choices. And I think the touchstone of wise choices: follow your heart and follow your instinct. What makes you happy? What gives you joy? Somebody likes to be an artist, be an artist. Somebody wants to sing, just sing. If you don't follow the rat race. Don't do something because everybody else is doing it. And it's a new world. It's not the world in which when I was your age, it was the rat race world. But I would advise you, pick your own path, and the path which you pick will be the best path. So wish you all the best, and I'm sure you will do well.
Wow, thank you so much for leaving all of us with such inspirational note. Here's to skipping the rat race in 21st century India, and have a good weekend ahead.